Okay, so Alexi came to me and she had a question on how to do a slight alteration to her drawing here in Photoshop. So I'd like to demo that for her, but I'd also like to record it and make it available to you guys in case you find yourselves in a similar situation with a line comp that you've done for class. So the first thing is we have this image and it's been scanned upside down. So I'm going to click on image, come down to image rotation, and just rotate it 180 degrees. And then also I'm going to crop down on the image because we have the entire scanner bed. And yeah, I just pressed C and that turned on the crop tool. Excuse me. And I'll just go ahead and pull this in here. Maybe not crop it all the way down to the bottom or to the edges of our picture plane. Just leave a little excess. I'll press return to commit that. Okay. Now also, the temperature of the paper, the texture of the paper is really coming through, so it's kind of giving a little bit of a temperature / value shift to the paper. I can adjust this by clicking on image, coming down to adjustments, selecting levels, and this is basically a graph of the value or the contrast, and I'm just going to bring in the whites right about to the point where they peak, bring in the blacks to where that starts, and then I'm going to take this middle range and just kind of push it over towards the blacks because it creates a broader spectrum for the whites until things feel a little bit more balanced, and I'll press OK. Alright, so the concern that Alexi had was where the implied horizon line was in this image. Based upon the information that the trees are giving us, information that the train is giving us, and then the information that the railroad tracks are giving us. Because as per the train and the trees, the horizon line feels like it's right about through here. But if we were taking the information from the railroad tracks, the horizon line feels like it's probably somewhere right up in there. Well, actually, maybe right up in there. So, this is a pretty easy fix here in Photoshop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started by grabbing the polygonal lasso tool. Now, if you don't see the polygonal lasso tool, you can click and hold on it right there until that pops up. And then I'm just going to come in and make a selection that grabs just our train track. So I just clicked and it set a point, and I'll come up here and click and set another point, zoom in a little bit just using Command plus, and I'm going to skirt the edge of your train. I really don't think this needs to be 100% perfect selection. Right, double click to complete or contain that selection, and I'm actually going to hit Command or Control J, and that will duplicate the selection. So over here in my layers palette, if I toggle off the visibility for the background layer, you can see that we have a duplicate of just the train tracks. Excuse me. So I'll turn that visibility back on, but I'll come to this new layer that we created. And with the new layer selected, I'm going to hit Control or Command T, and that turns on Free Transform. All right, and generally with Free Transform, you can change the scale. You can, independently along the X and the Y axes. If I hold down Shift, it kind of locks the translation of the X and the Y axes. We have these values right up here at the top. That show if it's, at 83% scale, etc. We can rotate that. But we have a little bit more flexibility with this tool as well. If you right click on the tool, there's a bunch of different transform options. So scale, rotate, skew, distort, perspective. I'm going to start trying with the perspective. And you'll notice now if I come down to one of these corners, what it's going to do is it's going to kind of, in a balanced sense, kind of uniformly stretch the bottom of that out like so. So what I'll do is I'll just start bringing this out because as we widen this, the implied horizon line is going to drop. And just bring it out to a point where you feel a little bit more comfortable with it. maybe right up here I could actually start to take it in just a little. Okay, now one thing that it is doing is it is kind of skewing some of these edges right in here. So, you know, you can print this out and then you can just kind of draw over for it and compensate for those things. It is maybe making the train tracks start to feel a little wider than they might actually be, or a little taller. So it is kind of messing with some of those things. But, you know, now the implied horizon line is, you know, about right up in here, it looks like, and so that's a bit more in line with, you know, what it is that Alexi was trying to do previously. So to commit that, I can just press return. Now, because this image sits on top of the original drawing, you know, it's actually started to come in and cannibalize part of that scoop on the train. I can actually turn this layer off and make a selection based on that train scoop. So right down in here like so. And I'll come up like this and double click to contain it, turn this layer back on, and then just hit delete. And then we get our train scoop back. So I'll press Command or Control D to deselect, and things are looking better. Now also, you know, we do have the you know, this area right down here. So I'll just use the polygonal lasso tool again to select the edges of your picture plane. Come up here a little bit, make my selection like that, you know, so we're kind of selecting the negative space. Turn this back on and press delete, and you'll get a sense for how that's cropping. Okay, we are getting a little bit of a tangent right down here, but I think the intention is to actually lower the composition in the picture plane to free up a little bit more negative space up top, and so that will resolve itself. All right, I hope that's of benefit to some of you out there.